Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We have got a lot of breaking news, and there is a key element of these strikes on Iran that do meet our standard for calling this a breaking story. And it's not a stretch, because here we go. The United States has just issued a travel warning for the entire Middle Eastern region, warning individuals to stay away, to reconsider travel due to, quote, fear of escalation. Please reconsider any movement in or out of the region. Additionally, according to a CBS report about 35 minutes ago, several U.S. service members have been injured in Iranian attacks on Jordanian bases this week, according to multiple officials, unnamed of course, to CBS News. Quote, Iran attacked at least 2 Jordanian bases this week. And again, the number of U.S. troops that are claimed to be injured here and the extent of these injuries are not clear. They haven't even been reported, at least these multiple officials cited by CBS News here. And the reason for the air quotes is, again, I like it when there are very explicit terms when it comes to reporting in the Middle East. Because if we are making accusations as to whether or not U.S. troops are in or out of danger, or they are injured, or again, they are casualties, whether killed or out of action, I like those things to be precise, because this is, again, unlike The View, an actual news program. Now, that brings us over to some of that specific information. Some of the United States strikes that are currently ongoing in Iran have reached as far, and this is even according to Iranian sources, the city of Yazd, that's Y-A-Z-D, in central Iran. The Iranian Tasnim state news agency reported 5 explosions were heard in the city of Yazd earlier this evening. This would be the first time that the United States has struck this far into central Iran since March. Now, Iran is attempting to get a couple of strikes in the air in retaliation. They are trying to strike both the water desalination plants in Kuwait, as well as the UAE. They were able to land a hit on a water desalination plant in Kuwait. They were not able to land any strikes, at least so far, against the UAE infrastructure. Kuwait and the UAE along the Gulf Coast, along the Gulf states, they get a lot of their water, the majority of it, from desalination. So they purify the ocean water. That gives them the crystal clear UAE and Kuwaiti water I'm sure they enjoy in their various water fountains. So what else is Iran trying to strike? Not only a power plant in Kuwait as well, but Iran has now tried desperately to begin striking the Kurdish forces in northern and eastern Iraq. A clip from earlier this evening, I should say, shows the Iranians trying very desperately to hit what are expected to be munitions warehouses. That's what a lot of those smaller flashes that you're seeing are next to the burning there. Those are rounds that are cooking off. And the United States has been silent so far on the Iranians striking particular Kurdish targets from a PR level. From a military level, and I believe that we have a map of some of the strikes so far this evening outside of just Yazd here. You can see on the map, and if you're on the radio or you're listening to the podcast, picture Iran. Now picture a bunch of explosion emojis along the southern edge of the country. The Bushehr province, as well as Lar, Bandar Abbas, Keshem Island, Sirik. However, all the way north of the Strait of Hormuz, north of the Gulf of Oman, you get all the way up near Kuwait and the Iraqi border, and you get to Avaz. And the reason that Avaz has been the target of a number of strikes in the last week by the United States Navy and Air Forces would have to do with one thing and one thing only: the strikes on Kuwait and the Kurds. The United States is now not only striking sites that the Iranians were using to harass ships on the Strait of Hormuz. Now the United States is moving to attack any particular site, any particular suspected IRGC facility, any suspected underground military missile storage silo, any drone munitions operation, either in process, like via smuggling through Iraq and Syria, and we'll get to that in a second, or via stockpiling and kind of midnight transfers. So Avaz here in this instance has launched a series of strikes against the Kurds in, again, the very western border region of Iran, the eastern and northern portions of Iraq. Now, it's interesting that they do this because this is something Turkey does not want to happen. Now, if you know anything about geopolitics, you'll know that the Turks really, really hate, well, anyone who doesn't like the Ottoman Empire. So they've always hated the Kurds. They've always hated Christians, especially Armenians. They've always despised the Jews. They've always despised the Druze. They've despised a lot of people because, the Turks and the Ottoman Empire. The Turkish did not want the Iranians to fire on the Kurds because it's in Turkey's best interest right now that the Kurds ignore the call of the United States. Hey, Tony, what are you talking about? Over the last couple of months, the Kurds have been given bargain bins of munitions, rifles, explosives, more explosives, fuel, medical supplies, some rations, couple of parts that just might go to repairing some very old equipment that they have. And the Kurds were said, hey, we were told them, hey, look, we're going to give you this brand new rifle. What you should do is take that old rifle that you have, that old butter knife you're carrying around, and you should pass it into Iran itself. You should smuggle them to the people of Iran. And then the Kurds said no. And, that kind of cheesed off the administration. And so a lot of the arms that were flowing into the Iranian, were supposed to be flowing to the Iranian people, not the IRGC, from the United States, stopped trying to go through the Kurds. If there's one thing that I would have actually asked former President Barack Obama on, a little bit of experience for would be, how do you run guns to untrustworthy people and come out the other side of that with a smile on your face? That's just, just something that I would ask the guy if there were any such thing. But back to the news at hand. Again, if Avaz is where Iran is attempting to launch anti-Kuwaiti and anti-Kurdish strikes, then the United States beginning to level certain military spots that are not just right up against the Strait of Hormuz are up for the batter's box. Now, that brings us over to a series of airstrikes which have now destroyed the Maritime Control Tower in Chabahar. Now, the Maritime Control Tower, imagine a discount mediocre regional airport near you, like the Indianapolis Regional Airport, or whatever passes for an airport in Cleveland, or Madison, Wisconsin. All right, a kind of dinky, halfway built kind of maritime or aviation control tower right here. Essentially something that the United States was dwarfing. It looks like a grain elevator with a small office trailer on top of it. Again, Norfolk Southern railroads were making better control towers for the rail yards back in 72. But anywho, this is what the Iranians had built. This tower allowed the Iranians from Chabahar to do a lot of that radio communicating. And if you've watched the show for any amount of time, you will have heard me play various radio messages before that essentially boil down to, do not cross the Strait of Hormuz, do not redeem, do not redeem. And then they would shoot at boats that were often supposed to be allied with either China or Qatar. And so the United States Navy finally decided that it would look a lot better if this particular tower, which was being used as a communication site for the IRGC, making it a military target, was being used to store weapons for the IRGC, making it a military target, and being used to target ships on the Strait of Hormuz, making it a military target. Now, I don't know about you, but that would be a triple. And so the United States decided that it was time for that particular tower to meet the ground. And so you can see this footage released here. Kaboom. I didn't exactly provide sound effects for this. Again, on the radio, picture a gray video with lots of explosions. So the United States reduced that to ashes, kind of
erased from existence.
Yeah. So the world decided, and by the world I mean a lot of the anti-United States forces, comprised of some hyper-populist isolationist groups here in the United States and abroad who say that everything is a result of the Jews. They got up in front of the world and said, this is a war crime. It's a war crime because that was a maritime tower. I mean, there were people in there that were probably directing traffic or something. I mean, it's horrible. It's terrible. My pearls, Rahim, get me my pearls. And no, the United States and the Trump administration are done playing around. The sentiment is currently finish the job, and the United States appears to be playing to that song sheet. Radio crew, we have to send you over to the commercial break. We need to talk about some of the smuggling operations caught on the breaking side of news, some other intel that we're getting in here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal. So while the radio crew is away, let's keep on digging, shall we? In the meantime, the United States, along with several other forces, we're also getting a possible notification that the Iranians are trying to strike deep into Saudi Arabia with Iranian ballistic missile attacks. We are going to be keeping an eye on this. Stand by for a second while we confirm some of these details. While we wait for confirmation on that particular piece of information here, a smuggling operation through Iraq and Syria was caught by a group tied to the United States, to Iraqi authorities and Syrian authorities that might have been tipped off by the Russians, which is an interesting twist and turn of events. Hundreds of rockets, drones, and weapons were found hidden inside of oil tankers at Syria's border with Iraq. Syrian authorities essentially saw the tractor trailers, the semi-trucks with tanker trailers coming into the country, all one after another, and said, that looks rather suspicious, looks rather strange. I don't exactly know that I believe all of these tractor trailers are just full of oil or are all empty. And so they opened some of them up. And what did they find on the inside? Well, it just so happens that they found quite a few things. So of the stuff that they found inside, a lot of military drones. They found a ton of other military material that was quickly confiscated, including fiber optic drones, weapons, both anti-tank, anti-personnel, as well as improvised explosive construction materials as well. Now, the United States, all right, we can confirm now, air raid alerts 15 minutes ago at 17 minutes ago now, were issued in Saudi Arabia, in Yanbu, which is on the western side up against Port Sudan, and then Al-Kharaj, near the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. These air raid alerts were issued with ongoing reports of Iranian ballistic missile attacks. Yes, and we can confirm the National Early Warning Platform in the Al-Khar government, which, for a piece of trivia that you weren't interested in hearing, is essentially the blasting of a bunch of brass music, has instructed everyone to take cover immediately. And it appears that Iranian missiles were fired and intercepted very early on. According to Barak Ravid over at Axios, a U.S. official has told him, Barak Ravid has quite the window into the Department of War and the Vice President's office. Iran launched a ballistic missile at a U.S. base in Saudi Arabia. This would be the first direct Iranian attack on Saudi Arabia in nearly 4 months. So we're keeping an eye on this. It would be a rather interesting move, given that the Saudi Arabians have also been attempting to strike Yemeni and Houthi air bases and airports, those runways. So we'll keep an eye on some of these things. The Saudis joining the United States in sorties against the Iranian regime would certainly be interesting, not the least of which because inside Iran, there are growing fears amid some of the regime that they're losing control on entire regions in southern Iran because the IRGC is simply understaffed, not paid at all. There are lines of vehicles now in several southern Iranian cities because there's nothing available, either for refinement, for fuel. There's nothing available on food. The money is completely worthless. And the IRGC is not actually able to tell people to go die in their homes. Now, from that bit further here, I want to make sure that we're getting all of our details up to date. Yes, after the bridge strike in Bandar Abbas yesterday, because the United States, again, Trump had been threatening a series of infrastructure strikes in Iran if they didn't play fair, let's say. Well, the United States has now begun not only hitting bridges, but also there are reports of power outages in southern Iran near Keshem Island. So we're going to get into those details. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. We are following a series of breaking updates in Iran. So as a reminder, yesterday after the United States struck a... Sorry about the audio there. After the United States struck several bridges on the road to Bandar Abbas, essentially between Keshem Island and Bandar Abbas, there were a lot of individuals that got up in front of the world and said, this is war crime, because how dare the United States strike a bridge and make it more difficult for the opposing military to move, transport supplies, troops, etc. And again, first of all, in a war, so far with the Iranian regime striking at civilian targets and infrastructure in other countries, the cards are already on the table. There is nothing at this point that suggests that the United States or other coalition allies around the world would be refused the opportunity to strike Iranian transportation options. So there have already been reports that 3 civilians were killed in this strike, and then that was rescinded, and then 3 different civilians' names were put forward. So a lot of that is still, again, kind of in flux as we're waiting to see what the final narrative is coming out of that regime. Now, one senior Iranian official, this senior Iranian official, let's see if we can actually pull his particular stuff up here. Do we have it ready? Yes, we do. This guy. This individual who's got a very interesting face. His name is Mohsen Rezai. He announced earlier this morning that if U.S. attacks continue over the next 2 or 3 days, then the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will move beyond the stage of deterrence and retaliation and enter the phase of offense and complete destruction. Such as U.S. bases and soldiers beyond political borders will be pursued and directly targeted. The United States should know that the attritional strategy of, quote, war and negotiation, quote, has reached a dead end, and in the coming days, the intensity of Iran's attacks will increase. Here's the issue with when we're talking about the bluster of war and PR. One of the downsides to the modern age of the internet and international telecommunication is that no country can truly negotiate in front of the public. So, for example, the president can't go before Congress and argue based on very specific and pretty detailed intelligence about what's going on in the Iran war, the Iran conflict. Why? Because about 15 seconds after it came out of his mouth, it would then be transferred across the Atlantic and then be in the hands of the enemies of the United States. That's the nature. But there are some positives here as well. The positives is that the age of bluster PR, in which you could simply say, we're going to take the gloves off and we're going to give you the 1-2, see? Like, that age is also over. Because after about the 15th time that you go before the people of your country and say, you know, they want to make a deal and we're going to see if they're going to be reasonable. Otherwise, we might do a little something. Or when Vance gets up and says, well, hey, you know, we're going to negotiate this time. Hey, we're going to negotiate this time. And that doesn't really work. After about the 18th time, people no longer believe it. And the same thing is going on right here with the Iranians. This is now the 515th time that an Iranian official says, oh, you're going to regret. We're going to bomb everywhere. Allahu Akbar. We're going to attack your bases. We're going to sink the whole U.S. Okay, our Navy is some. We're going to sink all of your ships. And then, subhanallah, we're going to take off our gloves, grab our goat, and extinguish you from the earth. And they've promised that every single day for the last 3 years. That is when they're not, chanting death to America every single day in their Iranian parliament. So there's a lot of people, there are quite a few people in this big, beautiful world in which we live that are not really of the opinion that the Iranian threats that, again, they have promised, pinky promised quite a bit, that those are really what's worth taking seriously at this point. Now, what is worth taking seriously at this point are the series of strikes that seem to be carrying alternative munitions. So Iran also appears to have launched 9 Iranian drones at the Saudis in the last couple of minutes, 10 drones perhaps. We're keeping an eye on this. The alternative munitions also being used over the skies of Iran may be including electronic warfare measures, which also carries with it some very curious, let's say, down-the-road consequences. Now, the down-the-road consequences would most easily be summarized as trying to cut off power in the region without blowing up the power plant. Power plants are kind of a tricky one here for the United States, whose goal is to get the Iranian people eventually in the position where they can take control over the country and the current regime falls. And the issue is that, well, the power plant, you don't just slap up power plants and then hesto, presto, you got power back on. It takes a lot to get a facility like that up and running. And even in the United States, it takes us a long time to get any traditional or conventional kind of power plant or facility up and running. It's one of the reasons why it's so egregious when Governor Kathy Hochul of New York and others like Zoran Mamdani praised the closure of a New York State a nuclear power plant in New York State back in 2021. And now Kathy Hochul says she wants to build more nuclear power plants. Well, it's going to take a lot of time to get that back online. So that is a consideration. Now, there's a lot of claiming things in the meantime, and this is where I will provide you a bit of my expertise based on some of the knowledge that I have on some of the claims that are made. So of some of the claims being made, one is that the Iranian regime has just shot down an MQ-9A Reaper drone in Bushehr. I very much doubt that the Reaper drone was shot down over the port city over the Bushehr province anyway. The reason I would suggest that is that up against the Strait of Hormuz, the United States, when it has flown MQ-9, when the Reaper's been flown, it has been flown off the coast. And the reason it's been flown off the coast is so that the Iranians can't scavenge anything if the United States loses a drone. Again, drones that are propeller pushed, they're not the fastest things in the world. And any pushed propeller craft is going to be slower than a pulled propeller craft, just by the nature of having an electric engine for air in the first place. Now, here's the fun part here. For those who are watching on the live stream here, if you see Circus on the map, Bushehr is to the east, down the strait of that particular location. Now, again, I told you that there was going to be some claims and things. The IRGC is claiming that they've shot down an MQ-9 Reaper. Again, the air-to-ground missile 114, the Hellfire missile, it's got a range of 7 miles. So there's no reason for the United States to strike the Bushehr province while over the city. It's not Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, boys and girls. Like, you don't call in a strike package and then you see the drone in the sky right above you. That if you're seeing a Predator drone right above you, it's too late. Okay? No. The other thing that's being claimed by a lot of kind of low effort open source intelligence on social media, and this is, we don't usually share these kinds of things, but I do when I dunk on really stupid things. The IRGC is also now claiming that they shot down a US RQ-11. It's a small, like a handheld drone system. And they're claiming they shot this down near the skies of Kuwait and right on that border region between Iraq and Iran. Here's the problem with this. The United States, neither the Army nor the Marines, have used the RQ-11 package since 2024. So if the Iranians have shot down, first of all, if you shoot down a drone that size, there is not going to be anything to pick up when you get over there. I very much doubt it. But anywho, like if you shot down an RQ-11, it definitely is not one of ours. And I know because I shed many tears when the United States stopped using the RQ-11 form factor. Again, propeller-driven craft or pulled craft, they have their points and purposes, but we are in the age of VTOL, vertical takeoff. So the classical drones that you might be thinking of with the 4 propellers, that's what the Marines are now using. So no, maybe Iraqis, not any private military groups that I know of that are using this either. G4S and Triple Canopy and Constellus, they definitely have not been. Actually, they were offered to buy some of the old RQ-11s from the United States military, and they said no. Essentially, the "this is worthless" meme. Radio crew will send you off to the commercial break. We have other kind of breaking news to get into here than the rumor mongering and such. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Okay, boys and girls. So in the meantime, while the rest of the world is enjoying the really great hoots of the Iranian war conflict, the president of the United States is now threatening Canada and China together, one after the other. So let's talk about this here for a quick second. Let me put this B-roll of the President of the United States back up. So the President got out today on social media, and he said, quote, "We are holding Canada responsible for the fact that they are not properly maintaining their forests. They're not maintaining their forests. It's quite tragic." He goes on in this tweet essentially to state that the brush therein, the United States being unnecessarily invaded by filthy, polluted, unhealthy air, the quality of which is dangerous and totally unacceptable. He says, "I will call their prime minister during the day to find out what they're going to do about it. The cost is incalculable." He says Canada's refused to engage in basic forest management and debris removal, knowing that such refusal will lead to exactly this result. He said this is willful negligence and becoming a yearly occurrence, costing the United States billions of dollars, which cost of this pollution must of necessity be added to the tariffs that Canada is currently paying. Thank you for attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Okay, so first and foremost, yesterday I pointed out that the United States and Canada have a clean air agreement of sorts. So this clean air agreement came about for the first time, I believe, in 91. Let me actually pull up the full agreement here. And there are some very interesting, like, asterisks, a couple of little specialties and exceptions in it. But the United States and Canada agree to be partners in two things. Number one, fighting natural disasters. Canada has consistently sent down their firefighters to the United States in order to help us fight fires, again, as often are needed in Canada, in California, and then often in the Pacific Northwest, and occasionally in Montana, although not as much. Now, here's the interesting fact here. Canada did, in fact, choose, as its federal government, through its parliament, Mark Carney, the Liberal government, chose not to fully fund and not to engage in a series of controlled burns and preemptive measures to keep the wildfires from getting this bad. They did. Now, that said, does that mean that it's going to prevent all wildfires forever, endlessly? Amen. No. But there are measures that can be taken so that we never reach that point. Now, the argument that's been made by even some conservatives in Canada is that, hey, we've got almost 1 billion acres of forest. What do you want us to do? Drive out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometers with only the maple syrups and the rakes on our backs and rake up all of that ourselves? No, no one's telling you to do that. But there are some very basic things that could have been done. And again, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, has consistently promised that we were going to get all of this firefighter funding and all of these planes and all of this infrastructure, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. The Canadian Liberal government also promised all these things, and it didn't happen. And by the way, the United States has already offered certain levels of assistance from various U.S. firefighters. In fact, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, when he's not bemoaning and crying over the child abuser that was deported from the country, Tim Walz praised some from the Minnesota National Guard and as well as Minnesota firefighters going north to help the Canadians. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, the Canadians chose, just like Governor Gavin Newsom in the California state government chose, to pursue these climate change policies that exacerbate these measures. And the same with Maui and their restoration from the colonialist sugarcane movement, that kind of thing. It just so happens that when you pursue nonsense, you do get bad results. Now, do I believe that Canada is going to end up paying tariffs here? Not necessarily. There is something that I do think Carney will end up doing, though. All right, the radio crew, the very fine radio crew, is joining us back from their commercial break. There is one little interesting tidbit here. So the Clean Air Act, wildfire smoke. So if there's a wildfire that happens in Canada, the current Clean Air Act, both again in the Canadian provinces and with its federal government, they're supposed to keep track of when there are large carbon emission events. So essentially, Canada's supposed to track when things get really rough and ugly with the climate. And wildfires don't count. However, if the Canadian provinces, like if Alberta wants to do controlled burns preemptively to make sure that there's not a massive problem down the line, that you're not going to get additional wilder fires. Again, Alberta is one of the provinces that have a smaller number of wildfires currently, although there are wildfires in through the entire Canadian provinces. those provinces that did controlled burns would have to count it. So essentially, they would have to report that they were doing climate crimes and perhaps pay for them by doing controlled burns. But if you have a big wildfire caused by mismanagement, that doesn't count. That's an interesting note from, Sean Reagan, senior fellow over at the Manhattan Institute. A lot of the conservative kind of Teddy Rooseveltian conservationists, this is turning out to be their day in the haze, as a lot of this environmental policy, which was possibly going to become bipartisan just for a brief moment after the 2024 election, Democrat Ezra Klein came forward with this abundance model. And the idea was that, well, sure, Democrat social policies work and they're great, but their economic policies of like hyper-regulating everything for the climate and killing ourselves over climate change, that's maybe not a really good idea. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, that one of the Maine Democrat candidates in their disaster, their real dumpster forest fire of a debate last night, Elizabeth Dickerson. I mean, all in this kind of climate suicide stuff. I care about the climate and weather climate.
But I did this because I'm very interested in climate and...
Oh, you thought I was joking when I was like making fun of her voice there? Oh, no, they're all that bad. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The president of the United States did not only threaten Canada with tariffs, he has also begun threatening China. And this brings us to a very, very crazy good time that happened last night. The president gave an address at 9 p.m. and a host of networks, some aired the entire thing, like News Nation, which is the fastest growing cable network in the country. News Nation out of Chicago has already passed MSNBC. They are moving very, very quickly up the ratings, and they are starting to nip at the heels of CNN. And by the way, one of the reasons why is because they hire hosts from both left and right. So they'll have Andrew Cuomo, and then they'll have Katie Pavlich. And they have those guys. I've been on with Connell McShane, who's one of their hosts. He's a former sports journalist. I have never seen a guy who has never let anyone get away with anything ever. And that is a guy who they have over. That's the kind of stuff they have. So they said, we're going to air the speech because we think it's a news event for the president of the United States to address the declassification of documents in front of the whole country. So CBS, now under, again, the operation direction of Barry Weiss, they sort of aired it. They got like a couple of minutes into it. And then as soon as Donald Trump started talking about election integrity as a whole, then they kind of cut and run and they dodged. And then you had, some outlets like, for example, CNN, MS Now, that gave some kind of precursors before they came back in. Some of the outlets out there like ABC ran it on streaming services, but not on their affiliate stations, meaning like the Spectrum on-air stations. Those rules that I have to follow, for example, when I'm on the air, because we are on some of those Spectrum affiliate stations. And before we get into who should or who shouldn't have or FCC licenses, I want to get into the central contention by the president of the United States. I was expecting something completely different. I was expecting him to talk about the 2020 elections in Georgia. And I told those who were watching the show this yesterday, and I was wrong. That is not what he talked about. The president of the United States made something very clear, and this is what set off Senator Mark Warner at Virginia. And it was a wild twist and turn away from where we were. Essentially, like Hakeem Jeffries and other Democrats, even some Republicans, had pre-prepared response speeches, and they had to throw them out because Trump didn't talk about John Ossoff a bunch. He didn't talk about Raphael Warnock. He didn't go out and say, all of these elections are illegitimate and we should have January 6th to electric boogaloo. That didn't happen. Instead, what you got was the president of the United States calling out China as an international espionage agent and basically called them out for undermining the entire civil and electoral structure of the United States by collecting data from Americans and then using it for Xi knows what. Here was the president.
First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history.
Okay. So here's the fun thing already. So the president of the United States, he says, they say, he got up in front of the country. He gave like a couple of kind of pep talk. The country is doing rather good. And everyone's liking where we're going. Maybe we're going to TGI Fridays or Bennigan's afterward. Then he launched in and said, there are a series of documents prepared by the intelligence agencies that are a declassification of internal operations and how the United States has observed, analyzed, and recommended actions regarding foreign entities operating internationally and here domestically in the United States, and putting their foot on the scale in various places at various times in different ways and means. And so when the president says they say, he's citing those documents. Now, as what I have seen so far, the president of the United States does, in a couple of places, exaggerate here, but there are two extremely damning things that the president had brought forward through these documents that, forget partisan, there's not even anything partisan that I can find about these accusations. And there are people that are spending the entire day going, Trump is mean and terrible. How could he get out there and do that? I can't believe it. I don't even know where you're coming from. I don't spend a ton of time on this channel, almost none, in fact, talking about the election stuff from 2020, because I'm more interested in actually seeing where we're going from here. But the president's allegations here against China and what they've collected, what Venezuela asked them to do, and then a third thing being their activity regarding the activity of intelligence agencies and agents in the United States hiding things from the president of the U.S., which I see some of the comments alluding to, and I promise we're going to get there. Those are three things that require attention right now. Not a thing to do with parties, not a thing to do with candidates at all.
Resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote.
Now, that is a very serious thing. Now, some people have said, well, a lot of this data is publicly available. Okay. Some things are publicly available. Some of the things that he just cited are not publicly available. For example, there are some states that we believe, based on these documents, that China collected information on perhaps you, over 200 million. Your state may not collect whether or not you are a Republican or a Democrat, or whether you voted in Republican or Democrat primaries. So these documents that are being brought forward that involve you were illicitly obtained. You say, well, what's the evidence for this? The suspicion that has led to espionage arrests in California, in which local officials were charged with working with the Chinese Communist Party. We've seen this before, in which there were individuals in Florida, in Louisiana, Alabama, South Carolina, and Ohio that have been working in order to pass information through Cuba to whoever Cuba's benefactors were. In the 21st century, that would be Venezuela after 2011, and then, of course, Communist China. And that information collected by China, when this was presented afterward to Mark Warner, he started to get really, really nervous. Really nervous and stammering. He's like, well, Russia did it too, which is, okay. We've already had it out in front of the American people that Russia was doing this, though. For China itself, the communist regime of China to be doing this is a significant piece of information, because if China's collecting data, and also China is and was in charge of a lot of social media algorithms, then China is directly usurping the American political, media, and cultural process by shoving things in themselves. Essentially, the idea would be that if your church bulletin board in the 1920s would be rearranged by an agent from the recently revolution Soviets, or in the 1930s, if someone from the German Reich came into your church, pulled down the bulletin board, knocked off all of the cards, and then put up what they thought you should be seeing. So that when you came into church the next Sunday and said, man, Elizabeth's having a Woichenstag potluck later. That's kind of strange. That's the kind of social engineering that China used this data for. And by the way, the data that Trump is releasing here was provided by known conservatives, liberals, technocrats, and libertarian-esque style law enforcement officials in the federal government in these agencies, both from members who liked, hated, and were completely apathetic towards the president of the United States. I know there are a lot of people right now who want to make every single bit of presidential addresses by the president as some type of a big, huge political move, and he's setting up the midterms and things like that. There is a severe question as to what other countries are doing to manipulate elections in the United States, whether it's Russia in 2016, or whether it's Russia in 2016 with Hillary, or whether it's China or Iran and so forth. We're going to get into some more of these details here on the show. Radio crew, take care on your commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. So the next big claim made by the president of the United States is that our voting machines have vulnerabilities, and that Venezuela, the Maduro regime, previously asked China to interfere and hack into their voting machine and their voting process to weight the election in his favor. Here was the president.
Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020. And that's what they did.
Now, the president of the United States citing that, again, there were individuals who were very, very upset by this and suggested that, you know, that the president of the United States is crazy for talking about this. That's just foreign intelligence. Either you trust the intelligence community or you don't. If the intelligence community is providing you their reports, you can choose to or not to trust them, but they, first of all, are in fact the sole possession of the commander-in-chief of the United States. They're not owned by Congress. The intelligence agencies answer to the president of the United States. If you don't like it, tough. That is how the Constitution set up executive agencies. And every single act since then has, although oversight measures for Congress, the executive agencies, including the intelligence, answers to the cabinet of the president of the United States. Now, Mullen, Secretary Markwayne Mullen of Homeland Security today, talked a little bit more about vulnerabilities in machines. Because, again, so many fact checks came out, flooded forward. Trump talked about voting machines, and actually, this was true, this wasn't true. I mean, right after the president finished, CBS put forward this big, huge series of fact checking. Actually, Georgia and Pennsylvania conducted audits, and you don't even have anything ready. You were watching it just like I was. What are you talking about? Fact checks right after the man's done. Look through the documents. After you look through the documents, after you go through the man's claims, then you can say whether or not Trump's right, exaggerating, or full of crap. Amazing how it's almost like the journalism comes with a little bit of research beforehand. Secretary Markwayne Mullen of Homeland Security today went into a little more detail on voting machine vulnerability and concerns by the United States intelligence services.
Talking about our machines, we know for sure that our foreign adversaries, not our allies, foreign adversaries have parts that are vital pieces in our voting machines.
And that is true. Objectively, it is true that certain parts of United States voting machines are manufactured by foreign adversaries. Now, one might make the case that this should have prompted something very important from the Trump administration after this, and we'll get there. But on its face, none of what he's saying here is wrong. You say, well, I don't like that that's kind of undermining people's trust in elections. I mean, too damn bad. What he says here is objectively true.
We know that they can access what they consider the key to the back of these machines. We know that they can change voter registration and your vote.
Now, the question is whether or not they did so. But that's not really what's being debated here. Whether or not it happened first has to start with, did they have the ability to do it? Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break here. The biggest, and I would say the most damning piece here, other than the major international implication, and again, we will get there, is that the intelligence community chose to hide things from Trump. I've seen a ton of stuff on this today. Whether or not you like Trump, you hate Trump, you think he's smart, you think he's crazy, you think he's evil, you think he's a blundering, bubbling buffoon, you think he's just a guy, whatever. He is the duly elected president of the United States. There is no one at any time that has the right in an intelligence community to keep things from the president. I don't care if you're an FBI director and you do not like Joe Biden. I don't care if you were a CIA operative who didn't like George W. Bush or Barack Obama or Donald Trump. He's the president of the United States. Either you follow the oath or you don't. And that brings us to, the lovely young lady over in the Strategic Intelligence Services for the CIA and the FBI. Here you go.
Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling. covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible.
Now, I've seen some of the comments already, and I keep an eye on some of the comments because it's a live stream show. Maybe it's uncouth as a broadcaster to keep an eye on what people are saying during the show, but I like to keep an eye. I have seen comments already that said, well, they had to keep these documents away from Trump. They had to, because if they didn't, then Trump was going to start a nuclear war with China, and they thought he was going to get burn bags and set fire to everything or whatever. No. And by the way, you should know, based on Trump's actions, that that's absolutely not, in fact, what's going to happen. That he's going to nuke somebody is the most petulant, whining garbage that I have heard yet. But alas, I won't get there until we get through here the president's statements here on the cases of the deep state actually doing some deep stating.
U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country.
Now, let's get to the screenshot here, some of the information bits and pieces. This particular email, some of these things being declassified, quote, all blank has heard/received nothing. We have deliberately massaged our one pending PDB to avoid any direct links to the election. The massive report we have been waiting on has been chopped up into 13 reports so that they will not likely get out until late next week. Many to all of them will be cross-posted into redacted or downgraded to redacted so that they can be more readily incorporated into the 45-day piece if needed. So what does this mean? They watered down the intelligence data and refused to hand it to certain members of the administration. That violates a lot of laws. It is again, it's obviously insubordination. If this was something that benefits a known or legislated adversary of the United States, which according to the US Congress, China is classified as an adversary of the United States, that fits the legal definition of sedition and treason. That is a hangable offense. That's really harsh. I'm sorry. This is one of the cases where I can say, I don't make these rules. Now, hang on, because there's more here. So a lot of different posts. There's one email shown from a Nikki Flores who said, I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point. When you're trying to suggest that MAGA Republicans, I guess, as Hakeem Jeffries would call them, are all like crazy and the deep state doesn't exist, having someone say, hey, I'm running a shadow government across the FBI from inside the FBI while simultaneously trying to withhold information from the president of the United States. I don't think that's really the move. Then we have one final claim from the president. It's on the number of non-citizens on voter rolls, and then his call to action. And then we'll get into the media response because it's bonkers. So here's the president of the United States on documents and non-citizens on federal election voter rolls.
Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that.
Okay. So the claim made by the president of the United States, there are a large number of non-citizens or individuals who should not be voting that are on the voter rolls. And there are a couple of arguments here. So first of all, this is a great reason for states working with the federal government and providing information on voter registration based on other data that the state would likely have before the federal government. So one example cited today by, more traditional conservative commentators, as well as those on the populist side, so both sides of the Republican Party, as it were, have made the case that there are those who are naturalizing So someone who comes to the United States and they're going to become a citizen on June 15th. They come here, they register to vote though in April, and then they become a citizen on June 15th. Like that naturalization process. Well, by the time they register to vote, they're not quite naturalized yet. Should they count? How is that updated? Well, if states across the country, blue states, red states, purple states, gave updated address information and updated voter and individual information to the federal government, a lot of that could be fixed. The other thing the President of the United States has called for is for voter rolls to be purged, because if there are individuals who are here who have registered illegally and are not supposed to be voting, then they should be purged from the voter rolls. The idea that you should automatically get to just automatically re-enroll every time so that you're always assumed you're going to be registered to vote is insane, and it's silly. Voting should not just be a wildly easy, just roll over off your couch, click a button, and then that's all you have to do. It should carry a lot more gravity and weight than that. Radio crew, I know you guys have to head out for the weekend. We have way more on the news side here on the live stream. The Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Audio crew, take care. All right, so the weird thing, though, on the other side of kind of the voter registration and information that we have so far, the Department of Homeland Security's documentation today shows 190,832 non-citizens currently registered to vote in the state of California, 35,152 non-citizens registered to vote in New Jersey, 15,903 non-citizens registered to vote in Nevada, 14,576 non-citizens registered to vote in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And then several representatives cited many of these statistics, not all of them at the same time, and said this is why the Senate needs to pass the Save America Act. Here's the truth. We don't know why some of those individuals who are registered to vote are listed as non-citizen. And I say that from a legal definition, we don't. If someone is going to be kicked off of the voter rolls, then I want to see documented, clear, transparent reasoning as to why. That's it. I want to know why, and I want that to be public. The idea that, oh no, well, it would what happens if you kick all of these people off the voter rolls? Well then, Jennifer, you tell people, hey, you've been kicked off of the voter roll. John Smith, you should re-register to vote. Go to your local DMV or BMV, show them your ID and other voter identification, and register to vote. Second, checking things. I have wonderfully aggressive ADHD, and some things in life I have medication for and are controlled. My doctor's office will not allow me to just automatically drugs, because it's so easy to be abused, and it is so often abused. So what do I have to do? I have to prove a number of things, even if we know we've all been through this before. Even if my doctor knows it's all fine, we still have to do these various things. And why? Because the opt-in procedure for voting is far more secure than opt-out. And let's face it, Americans, by the data, do not trust the federal government. They don't. They don't trust our institutions. So restoring institutions is better. It is better for Republicans, and it is better for Democrats in the long term. It is. It's a good thing. It is better. It is better that we treat citizenship as something that is worth effort instead of something that should be easier than spray cheese on white bread. Ugh. Now, again, the president's call then is to pass the Save America Act, the voter ID heavy-laden piece of legislation.
To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before.
All right, so two things here. One, there are a lot of people on the left side of the aisle that are now saying, well, wait a minute, states' rights. The federal government should not be setting standards for elections on the state side. Well, they do. The federal government already sets the standard for when certain federal elections have to be certified by. Like, those are already requirements that are on the books. There are quite a few, in fact. Additionally, the idea that states are supposed to have control over their elections does not mean flaunting federal law and standards on security, especially on national security. I hate to tell you this, but a state does not have the right to supersede the United States on a national security issue. You don't have a right. You don't have a right to do that. That I don't know what libertarian bumper sticker some of these people got that idea from, that if Montana is, again, if Canada is meddling in Montana elections, which means that the Canada might be filling out false ballots, mail-in ballots, to elect congressmen from the state of Montana, and the U.S. government then basically moves in to help keep Montana elections secure, guess what? The state of Montana can't say a damn thing about it. Not about, no. A state doesn't have to go, no, I want Canada to do things. That's not a thing. The Constitution and federal law are not suicide pacts. Where if someone is standing next to you and screams, I'm going to murder you in the name of Allah, that's not freedom of religion. That's not a thing. Oh, well, actually, free speech only means you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. Nope. There are actual real big boy and big girl rules. Now, this comes to the Trump administration's needs and what they actually need to do. Because we haven't gotten to Mark Warner and the screaming and the crying and everything else. Maybe we'll do that first, because what some people had as far as umbrage issue with this address is not at all what I took issue with. Because all the things the president of the United States said there, some of them maybe worded or exaggerated in classic Trump style. None of it was wrong. He's released classified documents to the American people that show transparency to the intelligence services and to how other individuals, or I should say other nation states around the globe, are trying to undermine the United States. That's a problem, amigo. And so I don't have any issue with that. However, Mark Warner lost his marbles, so he would go on, I believe, over on CBS. I told you, CBS immediately came out as soon as the stream ended. CBS ran forward to the entire country and said, President Trump announced his administration is declassifying intelligence that reveals, quote, shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure, including hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. So hacking, correct, because we've already, the documents shown by President Trump show China acting in a technological manner on behalf of Maduro in Venezuela. That's hacking. Exploitation would be China using American data and collecting it, and then foreign interference along the same thing, exploiting American resources, materials, current laws, and procedures to undermine American systems. That quote is effectively true. If CBS thought that meant something else and then they got their panties in a bunch about it, that's too bad. So here we go. Fact check rating false. Officials have repeatedly said election infrastructure remains secure. Officials have said, oh, wow. Officials have said, attention, ladies and gentlemen, a random lady from an election office in Georgia says everything's fine. Okay, that's great. That's real. That's real special. It's what is it? From the movie Naked Gun, because I got corrected on this when I made this joke yesterday, because it's not from Airplane. It's from Leslie Nielsen when the building behind him is exploding, going, nothing to see here, please disperse. If you're going to fact check the president of the United States, fine. I've done that. But he just finished. Look through the documents. And the next thing, Georgia and Pennsylvania conducted audits of the 2024 general election, and officials in both states confirmed the accuracy of election results. Again, okay, that's not what the fact check should read. You're really going to fact check the president of the United States, and again, fine, go ahead, fact check him. That's okay. You're an outlet. Feel free to do so. Just as you are free whether to air or not air the president of the United States, and then you are free to explain to your audience why you did or didn't think that was news. In this instance, just coming out and saying, Donald Trump is wrong, and he's bad, and he's dangerous. I need sources here, Chief. I need sources. Go through the doc. Trump said, these documents show a list of things in detail in Times New Roman, 12-point font. I said, no Comic Sans, Times New Roman for the American people. You go through the documents and you say, here's what's true, here's what's not, and here's what's I mean, as weird as this sounds, even Jonathan Karl over at ABC, who immediately took to the stage to go, well, first of all, Donald Trump is very bad and he's awful, but I haven't finished reading everything yet, just to be clear.
The president made some extraordinary allegations. I mean, he said that our election system, our security is catastrophically short. It dangerously exposed to hacking. When you have no trust, there is no greatness, and we can't trust our election.
Is that extreme? When there's no trust in a system, then there's no greatness? What's wrong with that? Seriously, what's wrong with that? I mean, again, is that a strong statement to make? Yeah. But if you're, how is reshoring trust? Again, where's like the Republican edge here?
Systems, but looking through these, we have a lot more to look through. I don't see anything that comes anywhere near making that case.
Okay, so here's the issue that I have. Even John Carl here making the point, I haven't finished looking through the documents yet. Before you get out there and you start running your mouth, I wish to say, my brother in Christ, read the documents all the way through. At least know what it is you're fact checking before you get out there and start running your mouth. So then Mark Warner, Senator of Virginia, we showed you a video yesterday. He was all mad in his car and he's like, we're going to have to suffer through this together. And I wanted to call his mom to see if he was okay. He got out there today and he's very, very, very upset. He's grumpy about things. And well, this was the CBS right after the interview's over.
And a matter of fact, before I start, as an American, not as an elected official, I was embarrassed that the President of the United States went before our whole country and networks like yours carried this as news, as opposed to a rehash of falsehoods.
Releasing classified documents on intelligence security matters. Again, you feel free to say you disagree with what the president read in those docs, but also, as a regular person, I'm embarrassed. As a regular person, I don't care if you're constipated. You've been brought on because you're a senator, not because you're an average guy from Virginia.
And it is incumbent upon you and any responsible journalist to push back on these falsehoods. I've been either chairman or vice chairman of the Intelligence Committee for the last decade.
If I may, on that point, since you raised it.
If I may just finish, sir.
The CBS guy's like, dude, can you get to the point, please? Por favor. We've got things to do. Even the CBS anchor here. So, and I do find this funny. As soon as the CBS anchor, he pushed back and said, hey, Trump said that 200 million Americans had their election data stolen by China. You're saying that's not true? That's fake? That's false? And Warner starts stammering because, again, if you are so retarded that you are willing to get out there in front of the public and start making things up before you've read the documents, you earn it. You have earned it. Lock, stock, and barrel. And so Warner starts dodging left and right like a deer on the interstate.
If we don't step up, and you guys as journalists and people across the political aisle stand up and say our election integrity is too important to mess around with, then shame on all of us.
Senator, what I hear you saying on the 220 million voter files that the president says China has accessed is that those are public documents and that's not a big deal. I hear that answer. I
can tell you this. Russia has probably got more. Iran has been doing it.
Russia's probably gotten more. Okay, and Trump came forward and talked about these documents. What is it? Oh, well, sir, it appears that there is a man running down the street who has made off with your wallet. Oh yeah, well, my wife got the house and the divorce. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's running, he's right there, catch him.
Has done this much more actively for years. And and for both 2016 and 2020, he forgets to admit the fact that Russia wanted Trump to win. Iran, to his credit.
No, the intelligence documents show that Russia purposefully kept secret the real story and purported videos, documents that Hillary Clinton was on Quaaludes for bipolar manic episodes that even Bill Clinton has alluded to in the last couple of years. So, no, Russia threw $100,000 into Facebook advertising to promote discord and chaos in the country. That is true. But Russia literally intervened to silence scandals on behalf of Hillary Clinton. No.
It was against Trump. China was kind of...
We said Iran was against Trump, and then he's going to say that China, I don't even know who China was polling for.
Russia wanted Trump to win. Iran, to his credit, was against Trump. China was kind of mixed.
No, China's not. He's just making stuff up at this point. He's making stuff up. And why do I say this? Because China has always explicitly been in favor, especially in this last election with Tim Walz, who was saying that China needed to be the new leader of the globe. You had individuals like the Hillary Clinton crew who were offering deals to the Chinese. Like, get out of here with that nonsense. It's blisteringly bewildering. Now, I would be remiss here if I didn't, not all of the media was doing kind of the full run today. Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal, he did get a chance to respond to, Jake Tapper asking about this and whether or not people cared or liked the president kind of taking these things to task in the address last night.
Robert Bluey, let me ask you, is this what Republicans want the president to be talking about?
Some Republicans certainly do. This is an issue that continues to motivate conservatives. I run a conservative news website. I can tell you, Jake, that this is an issue that people are still concerned about. Particularly those in the Senate who are pushing the Save America Act probably are thrilled that the president is shining the spotlight on it. At the same time, if you look at poll after poll, they are concerned about the cost of living in this country, affordability, the rising price of gasoline. I think that those are the bread and butter issues that a lot of Republicans who are up for re-election this year are concerned about.
Okay, now, here's my actual issue with Trump and the China thing. I agree with the president and all of what he is saying. So then why are we still taking in 600,000 students from China? If China's this threat, clearly, and they're meddling in elections, as I believe that they are, the evidence shows that quite crystally clear. Why are we importing 600,000 students who go mainly to STEM colleges, and then, as soon as they are done, are given extra time to spend a free year in the United States? They can get federal grants to stay here, and they're hired by all of these big tech and defense firms, and then they send all of that stuff back home to China. And again, we have espionage after espionage after arrest after arrest after arrest of individuals who have come over here from China. If you are actually serious about this, then you have to be serious across the board. And I want to make that clear because I hate cherry picking stuff. I do. You want me to play the election game along with you, Mr. President? Okay, get rid of all 600,000, but they're giving so much money to American universities. I don't care about American universities. I don't care about the universities that have chosen to funnel money into lesbian history, gender queer dance studies, rather than actually useful things. I would rather that the trades schools, where American students are choosing to go, are given the money, if money has to be given. I don't care about whether Tianjin is sending over students to the United States to receive an education in westernized China. That ain't happening. I also do not think that the United States needs to be given China any special deals on things. If prices are going to go up for something, it should be because we cut China off. Screw China. To quote a famous Hong Kong protester, Mr. Donald Trump, don't trust China. China is asshole. No, if we're going to play this game and China's bad and China's interfering, yes, we need to pass the Save America Act. Absolutely. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. I agree. You're preaching to the choir, and I will sing that tune because I agree with that piece of legislation personally. However, you as the president have the, and I guarantee you Marco Rubio would not have any problem with this. He can invalidate all of those visas today, now, like right now he can. In fact, every Chinese national visa, gone, sent home. Because guess what? China got up in front of the country and said, no, we didn't do anything. Oh, okay. That's real special. Yes. Thank you. That's very, very wonderful. So again, for me right here, I agree with the president, but I don't want to hear about any of this until there are arrests. And I don't want to hear about any of this regarding election stuff until, if we're talking about foreign interference in election, you are the president. I'm on your side here. Don't let someone go, oh, Mr. President, you have to let in all these students. And the Confucius programs here in the country as well. Sorry, for those who are just now joining us for like the very first time, you've never seen this show before. I'm a former science teacher and an administrator from the state of Indiana. And I watched, again, I have 2 master's degrees, both are worthless, one in education technology, one in curriculum development. And I will never forget individuals trying to sell me on China forward curriculum models. Now, again, Todd Blanche and the DOJ is going after Neville Roy Singham. Excellent. Great. I love it. Send all of the Chinese students home. Is that a race thing? No, it's not a race thing. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's not an ethnic question. It's a loyalty to Beijing question. There are tons of those who have fled Hong Kong, who have fled communist China, who have come here as refugees to become citizens of the United States and stay here. Those are people that we want. Those who are coming over here to make money off the American system so that they can then send all of that IP back to China to then thwart us on the global stage. How about no? All right, that's enough on that. I want to move a little bit forward here before I rant for the rest of the show. So that brings us to a different crapshoot, a different dumpster fire. Because I don't really believe this is a particularly huge dumpster fire, not in anywhere close to what's going on over in Maine. So I've been looking forward to sharing some updates with you guys on this one since I also saw this last night. Last night there were two big things on TV. One was the presidential address. One was, of all things, the Democrat debate in Maine to replace Graham Platner. And I didn't think that it could be this good. I saw all of the same candidates that you did, initially is like Troy Jackson. And then there's this random gal and they're running for the election. And who are people in Maine going to choose after, again, alleged sexual abuser, Nazi tattoo, maybe messaged minors, former mercenary, faked PTSD, fake oyster farm, all that stuff. Graham Platner after he was kicked to the curb. Bernie Sanders, big super pick. So that brings us to this debate, which, guys, it's been a long week. It's been an annoying week. And so to have this, to see the Democrats getting exactly what they deserve out of these candidates to replace Graham, oh, sweet baby Moses in a basket floating down the Nile. It's truly beautiful. So the four candidates on stage were Troy Jackson, Shenna Bellows, Elizabeth Dickerson, who we've already played a small clip from tonight, and a man who calls himself Ashley Webb. Why should you be the senator from Maine? Why are you going to be the one to defeat Susan Collins? What are your qualifications? I give you the beautiful reign of Slagathor.
Ashley Webb, what qualifications do you have to serve in the U.S. Senate?
Oh, I ran for office several times. Didn't win, but I did run. And then I'm a songwriter, and then I write my own books, and then I suppose my transparency, I wouldn't lie to the people and I wouldn't deceive the people like we're being deceived right now.
So first of all, man, Elrond has had a really rough last couple of years. Aside from that, oh my, singer, songwriter. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. Guys, it's just rough. It's very, very weird dude, this guy who calls himself Ashley Webb. Now, a bit of background on this guy, because Colin Wright has done a good amount of research on this. Again, also another fellow over at the Manhattan Institute. Maine Democrat Ashley Webb, who said he would not lie or deceive people. By the way, he announced his candidacy in a Reddit post that was generated with AI. Couldn't even be bothered to write his own little campaign announcement. Anyway, he says, I am not going to deceive people. He has claimed in Reddit posts that he ovulates and has a monthly period, but because he has external male parts instead of the proper hole, period blood comes out of his anus. Period blood comes out of his anus, he says, because he doesn't have the right hole. He has external male parts. Okay. All right. Okay. As a former biology, anatomy, and physiology teacher, I would just like to say, the parts of a lady that bleed when she sheds certain things monthly, which is where the bleeding comes from, that's not connected to the colon. If you are bleeding from the colon, you need a colonoscopy and to be screened for intestinal, stomach, or colon cancer. You're not having a period, you're likely dying. External male parts. Oh my God. So despite being karyotyped as XY, he says, I'm pretty positive that I am the XX type. You can't, guys, your chromosomes, they don't change. They don't change. If you are, they test, they zoom in way real close there, and you're XY, that's not like an off day for the chromosomes. Like, it's not like it's just like it's winter and it's really cold, so like you can't really see the final leg of the X there. Nope. That's not how that works. So, just also, he has received colonoscopies, according to Colin Wright, and that poor man having to investigate this. Oh, yikes. Says there has been no evidence that he has a uterus. So guess what? If you don't have a uterus, you're not shedding things monthly. Bruh. Does the trans community know that, like, the whole bleeding thing is not like your body knows it's a woman, so like it's like, oh, I gotta do some bleeding, I'm a woman after all. No, that's for a biological reason, because something is happening. Oh, the pain. Oh, the struggles. Now, he was proud of a few things because, again, I've told you guys this before. What is everything about in the socialist camp? It's about healthcare and Medicare for all. He also says, and I don't have the clip here, that all he wants to do is use girls' bathrooms. That's the entire, I'm not joking. The entire reason he's running is so that he can use girls' bathrooms without being assaulted. Weird. Now, there is an earlier clip of him. This dude he has crawled out of the darkest basement. Happy
birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to me. I'll blow out the image.
You need to leave.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh no, this guy. There you go. That's candidate number one. All right. Now you think, oh, Tony, well, that's just one crazy person. I'm sure they all were, like the rest of them were actually doing pretty okay. I already told you, nope, Maine Democrat Elizabeth Dickerson. Why is she running to be the senator of Maine? She likes weather, and she thinks that Donald Trump is wrestling weather every morning. Like Donald Trump gets up and goes, I'm going to wrestle the sun and the clouds. I'm going to say if it's going to rain today, it's because Donald Trump wants it to rain. Here you go.
But I did this because I'm very interested in climate, and President Trump has done about everything he can do to strip away any protections that we have on climate.
Okay. Exciting, fun, neat. She also believes that people are both joining the party and leaving the party because of the whole Graham Platner thing. So she's making the case here that a bunch of people in Maine are upset that the alleged rapist, domestic abuser, Nazi, fake oyster farmer person, again, all the other stuff, Graham Platner, the people are really mad that he was kicked out of the race or stepped down. And so they're going to leave the party in protest, but they're also joining. Girl math at it again.
The Democratic Party is becoming more popular in many respects with folks, but it's messy. So some people are unenrolling because they're upset over what happened with Graham Platner. Some people are re-enrolling.
Boy, I know that whenever my show gets more popular, we lose hundreds and thousands of subscribers. That's how you know. Right? Man, I tell you what, man, whenever I am like just so full, I couldn't eat another bite, I order a ton more food. And whenever I'm starving, I say, you know what? Now it's time to fast. Excellent, exciting things. Again, all of the policy proposals, though, because they did talk policy, it's all about two things. Number one, abolish ICE, get rid of any law enforcement on the federal side. And then number two, Medicare for like everyone, Medicare for all, because I don't know what I'm doing, but if I say you get free doctor's visits and then gender affirming care, which we're going to talk about in a second here, then like I just am happy to be here. Everyone here on this stage is just abolishing ICE but replacing it with free Medicare.
Even though all of us who have spoken tonight are very committed to either abolishing ICE or reforming and then abolishing ICE or starting all over or some combination therein.
Hang on. Either abolishing ICE or reforming then abolishing ICE. Or reforming, changing, renaming, and then abolishing ICE? Yes, thank you. That's real special.
We can't get that done until we actually have control of the Senate.
Well, with these candidates, you're well on your way. Well on your way. It gets worse. Again, I told you that the Medicare for all thing, Troy Jackson, who's running is I'm a working man. I'm a lumber boy, just like you. I'm like Graham Platner, but tanner. And also, I don't think he should have been kicked out of the race.
What is the idea from Graham Platner that you heard that you will use to move forward with your campaign and try to win votes?
That is a dastardly question from I don't know who these two dudes are who, moderated this debate, but I would like to buy them a beer. Because, what is it from Graham Platner? You guys say that you like him, but you don't like him. So what's one of the ideas that you really like? Troy?
Well, I think that's pretty clear. I mean, what Graham talked about is something that I've been fighting for since I got into politics. Healthcare, Medicare for all.
Yeah, healthcare, Medicare for all, abolishing ICE. Yeah, excellent. And again, they're also very mad about the Save America Act and stuff. Now, there's another story that we haven't gotten to yet tonight that even the Olive Garden ultimate unlimited pasta thing they have going on right now requires stronger voter ID than things up in Maine. But I don't want to get away from this just yet. The Medicare for all thing was a really big deal. And yes, even Ashley Webb was so excited about universal health care, he excitedly shouts, well, here you go.
Okay, thank you. Phil.
You just said you're for Medicare for all. Is everyone on this panel? Dan, no?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
It's incredible.
Just checking. Just checking. That's 8 for 8 with the candidates tonight.
That's amazing.
I'm actually on Medicare.
Oh, okay. Well,
I laughed at this clip so much last night that I was annoying my wife. It was so funny because you're all socialists, right? Medicare for all. And then he has to one up him, but he has no idea how. He's like, actually, I'm on Medicare. And the moderator's like, oh, well, isn't that nice?
Okay, thank you. Phil.
You just said you're for Medicare for all. Is everyone on this panel? Dan, no?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
It's incredible.
Just checking. Just checking. That's 8 for 8 with the candidates tonight.
That's amazing.
I'm actually on Medicare.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And he looks so proud of himself. He's like, yeah, I'm Now, one last individual in these debate, her name is Shenna Bellows. She also really struggled because they asked her a very basic question, and this lady just froze. She couldn't answer any questions. She's not even on Medicare, you see. So she was hurting the whole time. Here you go.
And so I have many ideas on this one. And if you'd like to go get a mocktail.
Give me an example of a specific area of oversight that you'd like to have a hearing on.
Well, I'd like to have a lot of hearings. And so...
You're doing real good, sweetie. Yeah. Thrilling stuff indeed. She also, poor Shenna Bellows, she also has no idea whether so she's basically like, Shenna Bellows is the candidate that I have railed against time and time again on social media, who is at a state fair and they'll take a picture of them holding an elephant ear with like 34 napkins or eating it with a fork. And then they're like, I'm just like you here at insert state name here fair. And I am trying some of the delicious deep fried Oreos. Taste the crunch. And everyone in the background is just booing them because it's very fake. Shenna Bellows is that person. Case in point, she's asked about the daylight savings time bill. I can't think of something that's like less important to ask the candidates about. Like, what do you think about the daylight savings time bill? And she tries to be political with this answer. Honey, sweetie baby, it's the daylight savings time. It's like asking, would you rather have a puppy or a kitten? And you just answer and you be kind of funny with it. And you're like, boy, I don't know, but I sure bet I'll lose sleep either way. And then everyone does like the fake kind of sitcom Studience laugh, studio laugh. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, that kind of a thing. And then you have Jerry Seinfeld's like, what's the deal with that? And then you move on. She didn't do that, though. She tries to get political with this answer, and it gives me the giggles.
Okay, we just have a minute and a half left. Maybe do a couple quick questions here, Rob.
All right, here's a quick one. Short answers. The House of Representatives this week approved ending daylight saving time. Would you approve of that? Would you vote for that, Jenna Bellows?
Well, we had a debate about this in the state legislature. I'm sure Troy remembers. And I think there are reasons for and against. And I haven't read that House bill, but I will when I am senator.
Well, you know the general idea of ending daylight saving time. Where do you stand?
And when I was in the Senate, I think I voted for it, but you'd have to go back and look at my record. And you know what?
It doesn't sound like there's a lot of conviction there.
I tell you, I love it when it gets late in the morning.
I love it when it's light in the mornings, you know.
And gets dark at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. That's my favorite.
There's the children's book I love where the sun rises and it sets. I just think that's kind of neato. And when I'm in the Senate, I will read a bill that is already being voted on now and so will not be in the Senate anymore. When you're in the Senate, you retard. Just like...
Troy.
Over a daylight savings bill. She can't even answer. Oh man, that's some good politicking right there. Let's go. So she did so horribly, but her poor campaign has no idea what to do. I mean, so she goes out, she's like, you need to give me money. Dear insert name, the pundit said I froze at the debate last night. My friend said I've been raw all week. The truth is I am. I don't know not how to be raw after Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero was brutally killed by ICE in the streets of Biddeford on Monday. How often do you get to say, give me money, I'm going to stand on this corpse, I'm going to lie about an event, and I did froze and I didn't freeze. So as someone who doesn't know how to handle serious things, give me money, give me money. I love it. Oh, what a thrilling time. Oh, man. Take care, Shenna. I sure will, Shenna. That's so special. Oh, what a good time. Well, I have a couple of other things before we're done this evening. I know it's a longer Friday show, but man, there's just too much that's beautiful here. All right. Now it's just welcome to, guys, it's crackhead season. It is. And it's not just in the Maine debates. It's everywhere. It's all the time. There is a huge controversy brewing right now over testosterone. So to give you a little bit of clarification here, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth got out and he made an announcement. He said, hey, if you're over 30, you're in the military, you're going to get screened for your testosterone levels. So here's Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
What is the idea from Graham Platner?
That's not the one. 33, not 30.
I'm authorizing a new screening program for testosterone deficiency for our service members, ensuring you have the right testosterone levels to operate at your absolute best. Because it's well-established science that as we age, testosterone levels often naturally drop.
Okay.
Under the supervision of our world-class medical professionals, warfighters age 30 and older are going to be tested annually as part of their periodic health assessment. It's a health assessment that happens every year. If treatment is recommended, it's entirely your choice to receive testosterone replacement therapy.
Okay, so it's essentially just, hey, as you're getting older, if there is a hormone that should be surging through your veins that just ain't as much anymore, the Army, and well, you know, I would say the Army's a paternal organization because that's the quote. But, you know, if you're in the military, especially these NCOs, you need a little more testosterone to keep yelling at people the same way that you once did. Then again, we say the science. I don't know if that needed a whole video for it, but okay, sure. All right. Hegseth has said he wants to make taking care of our war fighters a huge priority. All right. Again, I have seen some of the studies that he's talking about. He's not wrong. Now, this, of course, immediately became a talking point because some thought this means that actually the Trump administration is promoting gender-affirming care. And I wanted to stick my head into a blender. Pramila Jayapal, who is between day to day, she either decides that she's going to be like seditious or illiterate. It kind of day to day. A lot of choices to make there. Here's her analysis on this.
Now, just an hour ago, the Secretary of Forever Wars,
oh, that's so clever,
Pete Hegseth, said that they are going to provide hormone therapy for male service members who don't have enough testosterone.
So again, testosterone linked directly with physicality in males, having a physical military force. You can see the logic. And again, there is a lot of medical science behind it. Why do I cite this though, as I know what I'm talking about here? Because again, former anatomy physiology teacher who's done a lot of work on the hormonal therapy that we've talked about and the transgender treatments and things. As much as we know about our endocrine system, there have been very few long-term studies, but hormones that are active in men and in women as they age, and mitigating certain effects of aging in men and in women through some kinds of hormonal treatments, that's the only science that we have. And that's why I always cite that when I'm talking about messing with the endocrine systems of minors. So I like how she's scoffing at this. All you got, I mean, they're very basic reports to read on this, though. Before you even get down, again, whether you like it or hate it, going right out at the outset and like throwing the axe head at the reports is not how you're going to win a lot of people. But she's got dunks to score here.
This, by the way, is gender affirming care.
No.
And by the way, male members of this committee, watch what you vote for.
Okay.
Do you really want the government getting into your business, taking your testosterone levels and determining whether or not you have enough testosterone? Are you male enough to be in Congress?
Okay, so first of all, nowhere in any of the statements that were made by the Secretary of War did it talk about being man enough or male enough to be in the military. Nope, not in there. Number two, the levels of testosterone are, again, related with physicality, to which Secretary of War Hegseth said, if you want, you can then get treatment based on the levels. Like, we'll offer that treatment, we'll give you the opportunity to maintain that physicality, to maintain those hormonal levels. That's it. And as to the, because she's trying to get, like, do you want the government really messing around? I think she's flipping it around. Here's the issue with that. There is no one that I know of that is suggesting it is brutally and terribly evil, for example, if you have a child with a puberty disorder who should not be allowed to be given the puberty-related or gender-specific, sex-specific hormones to solve some of those issues. There are many individuals who I know personally, some in my family, who struggle with developmental or hormonal disorders, like actual disorders, who do in fact receive testosterone to cover a medical thing. And you know what? If a boy receives testosterone, that's not gender affirming care. That's solving something his body's not making enough. If you give a little girl testosterone, you are messing with things that you have no business messing with. That's the problem, because we don't understand, as in the medical community, it's not understood how the endocrine system works in and out. We don't. We know very, very little. And that's why messing with the endocrine system is dangerous in general. It is why you really, even if you're a guy who takes some testosterone treatments, it comes with some warnings. In the same way, if a lady takes estrogen, it comes with some warnings. Because if you don't do it just right, or your body processes at the receptor level, for example, at different thresholds, or how your cardiovascular system is porous towards certain kinds of estrogen supplements, for example, that can be a serious issue. It can cause kidney failure, for example. And so there, you have to go talk through these things. That's not gender affirming care. Not how that works. Weird points here. The View also had to jump in because, ABC's premier news program needs to get its foot in the door there.
All this made me think about in testing T levels is, what are they doing next? Measuring penis size? Like, this feels like...
I only think about men and sex is just the weirdest dunk for a lady. Man, Sex in the City was bad for this country.
The manosphere is in charge of the military. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Wow, I can't believe that men would want to be manly for the military. Oh no. Clearly, having scrawny, skinny, transgendery, feminine individuals is what we need going up against foreign forces. Oh, those horrible, awful men. What are they going to do? Measure their penises? That's really special, sweetie. Back to the kitchen.
And by the way, bursts of testosterone don't end well for anyone. I'm going to show you a little video that I don't know if you saw. Take a look.
Oh no.
So this poor man, by the way, is okay. That's
my ex-husband.
Oh my God. So the man was hospitalized. He is recovering, but literally they link it to mating season and a burst in testosterone. This is what we get.
The bison or the man?
The bison. The bison.
Oh, get it? So the bison had a burst in testosterone and he tried to hump the old man. This is the same thing. Oh, dear sweet Lord. These are the science that trust the experts, people. Just amazing. 10 out of 10. I truly am enjoying this kind of nonsense. So before we end, and I know it's late, we'll probably have to cover some of the stuff from the Hawaiian Supreme Court, who got angry and said the Supreme Court violated the spirit of aloha by suggesting that Hawaii can't take people's Second Amendment constitutional rights from them. Or I guess the Third Circuit Court of Appeals today also saying that New Jersey doesn't get to ban firearms with over 10 rounds. That's not a thing. So some definite wins there we might have to cover in more detail. I want to make sure there aren't any big mail time questions here. From Knight Aries, KNIGHTARIES, in the mail time questions section here. Let's flip over to this real quick before we're out so we have it linked correctly. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Said, can Congress pass a law that specifically outlaws dual citizenship where they have to give up one or the other? No. Congress does not have that ability to do so. So again, I know it's kind of a weird situation in general, but as far as the Supreme Court decisions that are already established, in 1967, the Supreme Court made it perfectly clear that the only way you can give up American citizenship whatsoever is if you, as an American, declare, I am giving up my citizenship, like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy. That's literally the only way you can. Now, that's a stupid Supreme Court decision and should be overturned. Could Congress pass a law that says you may not serve in the judicial or in government if you have dual citizenship? I believe so. There's some federal precedent that would get a little sticky should they try to do it anyway so the Supreme Court can rule on it. As to whether or not that's constitutional, yes, they should. Because I don't think there's any constitutional precedent for serving on that side of things. Next kind of question here. There's a couple that are kind of foreign policy ones I don't really want to touch yet just because they're not kind of solved here. From one user, will there be any repercussions for the reporters the president spoke of that took money from foreign nations for their negative stories? Even if it was somehow legal, the American people deserve to know what members of the press are untrustworthy. So the answer to that question is that if you take direct orders from a country to do something in the United States, you have to participate in FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. You have to register as a foreign agent, and that has to be known. So there were some charges and arrests made in California over individuals running a pro-Chinese newspaper that have already been arrested. So like to answer your question, some of them have already been arrested. Many of them are under investigation right now. There are a couple of bits and pieces to that, but we're already further along there than you would think to actually getting some of that stuff taken care of. Last question here. Do I think that either Israel or the United States should take over the island that is in dispute in the Strait rather than the United States going it alone? No. I think that if the United States is going to take something, it should take something entirely. Coalition-run occupied territories don't usually go well. Throughout human history, when coalitions of allies have occupied a territory together, whether it's very small or very big, it always ends poorly because there's no real final head or chief in charge. So, anywho, that's the that's that kind of that side. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention before kind of we're done here, because there was a very kind, I guess, $50 super chat. I didn't see it because we were doing all of the shenanigans on the news side. From Zeden9493, a very, very kind $50 super chat. You guys don't have to do that. Says, hi, Tony. Hope you and your team are having a good day. I'm glad that it's over because I am rather tired. There was also another very kind super chat, a $2 super chat from EPMJ. It says, from Miami, thank you, Tony and team, Mike in Gator County. That's very, very kind. Thank you guys very, very much. We appreciate you. Oh, Bernie Moreno actually introduced a bill on dual citizenship already, says Rebecca Downs at 842. That's true. Bernie Moreno also has, though I like the senator, he's also introduced a couple of bills. A lot of bills are introduced that I don't think can necessarily just skate on through without a ton of lawsuits. That's also an issue right now. The parliamentarian in the Senate should probably spend more time focusing on whether bills are constitutionally feasible. There's a lot of apathy in Congress about just kind of introducing bills as performative and not really doing, much else at all. So, last question here, just for fun, right, as we kind of round things out. Should we be worried about from Grace Yem says, serious question, should we worry about what our amount of weapons look like in the United States? Like the amount that we have? The answer to this is, I don't think that worried... Like, should we be actively worried that our stockpile is running low? No, I don't think it looks like that. Am I actually concerned at the moment that the United States isn't gearing up production, which it should? Again, if China's meddling with us, then yes, we should arm up immediately. Now, there's a lot of people who are like, no more money for the military, who also don't recognize that, again, our military budget compared to our entitlement spending budget on Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and other prop-up programs that are not long-term beneficial and are crashing is still relatively small. And yes, as a regular and a real country, we should definitely be amping up and innovating in our military and not dialing things down. So, asking a Teddy Rooseveltian imperialist whether we should be building more weapons, the answer to that is yes. Always, clearly, wholeheartedly. Again, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, that should be a convenience store, not a federal agency. So, that stuff said and aside, hope you guys have a wonderful evening. We'll be back on Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, for a lot more of the news and nonsense over this weekend, I'm sure. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Y'all, take care.